Hi everyone, welcome to this little impromptu Facebook Live. I've called this one The Energy Body and Understanding the Human Body as an Electrical System. And I was inspired to do this due to recent events of the launch of 5G. So I thought it would be really good for us all to get an understanding of what this is all about. And I've discovered some pretty incredible stuff the last few years, and I've really been reminded about how electrical the human body is, and it's very easy to forget. I thought I'd give you some more information so you can kind of make your own decision and decide what's good for you. So I thought I'd start with a little story, a little personal story, and a couple of years, not that personal. A couple of years ago, I couldn't shake off a cold. And it was quite weird. It was as if my immune system had crashed. I couldn't understand why my immune system was down. And it was very unusual for me because I don't ever get ill. And I hadn't been ill for years. Just as an example of why I don't normally get ill. A couple of years ago, end of 2015, I went to this Tony Robbins event. There were 2,700 people there. We were there for 6 days, pretty full on, really using our minds and bodies. And our immune system was put through its paces. Beforehand, I was actually recommended to really look after my immune system because everyone gets ill. And I thought, it's okay, I'll be fine. But I did actually ramp it up. I took it to the next level. And I really started loading up on nutrients, on organic food, vegetable juicing every day. I took my own bars there. I was really upping my supplements. I was being active. I was avoiding all the hotel food, all the inflammatory stuff. And I was just really making sure I was looking after my body. Long story short, I was totally fine at the end of it. A lot of people got ill in that group. 2,697 people got ill out of 2,700. I didn't get ill, and I'm playing a bit, but I just want to make the point that I didn't get ill, and the reason was I looked after myself, and I kind of used that as a benchmark. So a couple of years later, I got ill, and I couldn't shake off this cold. So I was thinking, what's going on? And transpires, I went to go and see a kinesiologist, muscle tester, who, by the way, if you're not familiar with kinesiology, it's the idea that you ask your body questions, the body keeps a score. And when you find a really good one, they can ask the right questions and find out what's in balance, what's out of balance. They can even find out history right until being in the womb. After, a few minutes of being muscle tested, I was told by this chiropractor that my immune system was down because I had been subjected to EMFs. And that he said my teeth had been depolarized. And I thought, what the hell is he talking about? Being depolarized? That made no sense to me. I think it's just because I've not been drinking enough vegetable juices or getting enough supplements in. I thought that was why my immune system was down. He said, no, your immune system's crashed because your teeth have become depolarized. Okay, I don't really know what that means. So he went on to explain to me how your teeth are like circuit breakers in your body and how your teeth are connected to all these different meridians around your body, and depending on which teeth are down, and by the way, it doesn't have to be from EMFs, it could be from a tooth infection like a root canal or a cavity or a trapped emotion, as we'll come on to soon. But there's lots of different reasons for different circuits in the body to go down, to crash the immune system. And this is this was very new to me a couple of years ago. And more recently, I came across this amazing video, which I'm going to actually be virtually reading out to you, the transcript that I've put into my book. But I really want to get this across because it's really interesting to understand how electrical the body is. Like everything about the human body is electrical. If you think about it at the kind of basic level, every thought we have is an electrical impulse. Every time our heart pumps a beat, it's an electrical impulse in that muscle, that giant muscle in the center of our chest, which seems to just kind of beat seemingly miraculously. And every time we move a limb, move our bodies, move our lips, everything's electrical impulses of energy, electrons moving throughout the whole body. We are these electrical beings. We are vibrational beings. Every thought, every feeling, every emotion can be measured in terms of frequency. And it's pretty incredible, actually. But it's really amazing when we start to think of ourselves as these electrical beings. We aren't these intelligent meat robots, if you like, where we're just kind of these clumps of flesh and bones with organs in them. We're way more than that. And I'm only scratching the surface, by the way. what the human body is capable of. Because in the last few years, I've noticed how powerful the body is in healing itself, and this is one of the biggest messages I'm trying to get across now at the moment. So I hope I keep your attention with the time of this presentation. It's pretty amazing how powerful the body is in healing itself when we understand it as an electrical system, and you can actually kind of reverse engineer why different organs are not getting their electricity to them very efficiently, and why almost any dis-ease or any kind of mental challenge, depression for example, is not a chemical problem, it's a voltage problem. It's got nothing to do, or very little to do, with anything else. It's really mostly, if not all, to do with the voltage problem. So, challenge, shall we say? Challenge. Don't like to use the word problem. So, first of all, what are we? We're not these intelligent meat robots. We are 50-odd trillion cells, according to cellular biologist Bruce Lipton, who was cloning stem cells long before it became cool. He's been doing this since the 60s, and according to him, we're 50 trillion cells, and every one of those cells makes up some kind of muscle or bone or joint or ligament or organ or, brain, heart, and depending on its environment, going back to kind of epigenetics and being born, it just creates magically what we are as humans. So every one of those cells, 50 trillion cells, requires feeding, and at a base level, they require... and they behave like a biological mini-me. And I love the fact that it's called he calls it a mini-me, because I'm a massive Austin Powers fan. So a biological mini-me, meaning every single one of those 50 trillion cells has the same functions as your human body and requires the same fuels. So at a base level, or top level, whatever which way you want to look at it, they require oxygen, water, nutrients, and the ability to eliminate waste. Those three main fuels and the ability to eliminate waste. So the human body, oxygen, that's kind of clear. We need to be active, we need to be moving and be breathing a lot and getting lots of oxygen pumping around our body. And we need to be drinking sufficient water, which is clean and preferably a little bit alkaline, super clean though, and pure, as if nature produced it from a spring. Ideally, obviously it's a bit harder in our current lives. Nutrients, that means nutrients, doesn't mean stuff that gives us a happy high or makes us fall for no reason. Which is often just stuff, often toxins, kind of the majority of what we find in supermarkets. And then the fourth thing is the ability to eliminate waste, which is really how our lymphatic system works. So our lymphatic system is the waste disposal part of the immune system, which is responsible for getting rid of all the dead cells, dead waste, dead cancer cells, all that kind of stuff. So that's really important for it to work. We actually have to be physically active for it to work efficiently. You may have heard that sitting is the new smoking. It's because they're not using people who aren't active, aren't enabling their lymphatic system to work properly. So that's kind of looking at the cellular level very, very briefly and extremely simplistically. So looking at the four fuels of our 50 trillion cells and what they require to thrive. I'm going to refer to my notes. So then I'm going to talk about how Dr. Jerry Tennant, who's this phenomenal integrative medical doctor, and he had this crazy story when he was bedbound for about seven years, and he couldn't think, his memory was shot, and he was very, very ill, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And eventually he did his research. He started researching all these cellular biologists, people like Bruce Lipton and other people who I'm kind of linking in here. And he just did a lot of reading in the 1 or 2 hours that he could read a day. And he discovered some really incredible things about cells and what they took to thrive. And what he found out was that our cells all function if you remember the pH scale at school that go from 0 to 14, so 0 is acid and 14 is alkaline, our cells require an environment between 7.35 and 7.45 on that pH scale. And you can actually use a logarithmic scale, whatever that means, kind of know what it means, but not really, and you can actually convert that to voltage. So every cell functions at between minus 20 to minus 25 millivolts to function efficiently and well in a very healthy environment. So I don't want to go too much into voltage or the alkaline scale, but if you can understand that particular point. All cells function between minus 20 and minus 25 millivolts. Without going too technical, it's quite a useful thing to know. So cells require energy to work. Electrical energy. This is electrical energy. So what he also found out is, in his many, many years of doing incredible things with people and helping people reverse engineer why they've got ill in the first place, is that a characteristic of all chronic disease is that it's a low voltage to an organ. So that the voltage has dropped, so an organ isn't getting the sufficient voltage and it starts to weaken and perish. So we are always wearing ourselves out every single day, and every single day we're also generating new cells. And to generate new cells, we actually need to be able to generate them. The voltage actually goes down to minus or up to minus 50 millivolts to create new cells and repair cells. That's what they require to regenerate. And a characteristic of all chronic disease is when we lose the ability to create new cells that work. When I heard that, I just thought that whole idea of what chronic disease is just flipped in my head. I was like, that's it. This guy summarised 7 years of everything I've learned about nutrition, fitness, healing, whatever you want to call it, being in a state of vitality, if you will. As soon as he said that, I just thought, that's it. Chronic disease only occurs when you lose the ability to create new cells that work. So why do you lose the ability to create new cells that work? Well, if you can't generate the energy to create new cells, and if your body's not able to go to minus 50 millivolts, then you lose the ability to create new cells that work. Namely, oxygen, water, nutrients. Nutrients can be fats, vitamins, minerals, proteins, etc. The actual nutrients that fuel the body at the cellular level. So if they're not getting sufficient nutrients, and if they're overloaded with toxins, which come in various forms, many forms, then there's a toxin overload, and then you're not able to create new cells. So I just realised someone's marking me. I knew. Hi, guy. I knew that would happen. I did a talk a few years ago in Vegas, and there was this guy at the front constantly contributing. He's here. So, one thing that's very interesting is how our muscles, we have battery packs in the human body. We have 4 different battery packs. This is when it starts to get really interesting. So, our muscles are like battery packs in the human body. And they generate piezoelectricity. Piezoelectricity is when we move and when we strengthen our muscles, the contraction of the muscles generates the release of electrons, and that's called piezoelectricity. So another reason why we must move, why we must be active, is because we literally generate electricity through movement. Massive. So not only do we get it through movement, so we're generating electricity, we're also getting oxygen into our lungs and fueling everything in the whole body. So I found that so interesting. I'd never heard that muscles are like battery packs. The next battery pack, so they're the biggest ones. The next ones are capacitors, and they're on the cell membrane. So we're going back to the cellular level now, and the cell membranes are like small batteries in your body. And remembering that with 50 trillion cells, every single cell has its own battery pack, and they're the cell membranes. And then when you go inside the cell, you've got the mitochondria. And I've often heard that the mitochondria is like the battery pack of the cell. So on the outside, you've got the cell membranes, they're the capacitors, and then inside, you've got the mitochondria, and the mitochondria are like the battery pack of the cell itself. Inside the mitochondria, it's called ATP when it's fully charged, and it's called ADP when it's not fully charged. The battery inside the cell is called the Krebs cycle, and the Krebs cycle is when fatty acids pass through the cells, and providing there's lots of oxygen, you create 38 ATP batteries. This is when it gets a little bit complicated, so I'm not going to go too much into it myself. And that's how more electricity is generated. And finally, the coolest battery of every single cell is the DNA. The DNA, this is when it gets really exciting. And this is the bit that excites me more than anything, because it's really about how, when you look at the structure of a DNA from above, it's got the golden mean or the golden ratio, which actually means that it is 1.618 or something, diameter times height. Ultimately, everything in the universe that is alive has this incredible, perfect design. And what the golden mean means, it implodes scalar energy, so energy from the universe. Everything that's created everything is scalar energy, ultimately. So the DNA, through its perfect structure, actually gets charged up by scalar energy. So that's pretty amazing. When I saw that, I just had to read that again and again and again and again and again. Golden mean means a diameter of 1.618 times the height. Wherever this is in the universe, it causes implosion of scalar energy. I'm going to repeat myself just because it's just so cool. Our DNA is golden mean, so scalar implodes into it. So it has the energy and charge to do its job. So we are storing electricity on a multitude of levels in the body, from our muscles to right inside the DNA, which is so incredible. Then we have the fascia. So our muscles are like rechargeable batteries. So like I said earlier, when we move and when we strengthen, we're generating electricity. And they are stacked in the body from toe to head in a very genius, perfect way. And surrounding our muscles are like this fascia. It's like this stocking. And Dr. Jerry Tennant talks about the shiny thing you have on a Christmas turkey when it's just out of the oven. But on the human body, the fascia is like a semiconductor. It's a collection of molecules in which electrons move through it at the speed of light, only in one direction. And it's a continuous stack of muscles from toes to brain, surrounding by a stocking of fascia that serves as a wiring system for the body. So we have this stocking throughout the entire body, which is like a wiring system for the body. This reminds me of a yoga interview I did a few years ago, in which this woman who did, during her yoga teacher training, she told me that we store emotions in our fascia throughout the whole body. And I didn't know much about it until I came across this. So we have a wiring system which encases all of our muscles. Every organ in the body has its own battery pack. This is when it gets even more interesting. It gets more and more interesting all the time. I hope you're still with me. And because they all have their own battery pack, we can actually measure each organ and find out why it might not be functioning. So we can isolate any system. When I say we, I can't. I've not figured out how to do this. But when you're this way trained, or in fact, you know what? You can do this. You can buy his book and you can figure out how to do this yourself, which is also really cool. So you can actually isolate a system, measure the voltage getting to the organ. You can figure out why it's causing why the voltage is low, and then you can figure out what's causing the low voltage to that organ. So a stack of muscles from toe to head is called a meridian. And a meridian is like an electronic circuitry in your body, much like a lighting circuit in your house. When you have different remember, you have a fuse board, wherever that is in your house, and every single one of those fuses is connected to a circuit. It's much like that in the human body, and there are 6 wiring circuits, and all of those go through your teeth. But the spleen starts at the big toe, goes to the inside of the leg, goes to a special branch, female genitalia, adrenal glands, pancreas, and it loops back into the stomach circuit, and then the macula of the eye, and then the thinking part of the brain. By the way, macular degeneration just means low voltage to the macula. It's crazy. So you've got 6 loops of muscle batteries, and each of those creates a circuit in the body, much like a wiring system in your house. It's so amazing when you look at it like this, because you don't need a medical degree or any kind of master's or doctorate or PhD to understand this, although I'm probably not explaining it as best as I could, but this is the first time I've done this. So each one of those circuits is functioning or requires minus 20 millivolts for it to function effectively and for the organs to work, and minus 50 for the cells to repair and regenerate every organ. So here's the interesting part. Chronic disease only occurs when one of the battery packs doesn't hold their charge. So why don't they hold their charge, I hear you say? Good question. So thyroid hormone, T3, plays a very important function. It controls the voltage of every cell membrane in your body. T2 controls the voltage in the mitochondria. So the mitochondria is inside the cell. This is the battery pack of each and every cell. So a number of things can cause the battery pack to lose its charge. If you were to put a scar, this is interesting because I've got scars here and here on the back of my head from doing stupid things at school, getting into fights and stuff. I need to go and look at these battery packs and scars because it's quite interesting. So if you were to put a scar across one of your battery packs, it can actually literally short circuit. It actually shorts the circuit. It's the equivalent on a lighting circuit when a wire connecting it like a circular circuit. If you know anything about wiring a circuit, just think of a loop and lights and a battery pack on it and a switch. And shorting a circuit is like having a wire across it, which cuts it quite literally shortens the circuit. So whatever's the other side causes the lights to go down or whatever's on it. And then in the human body case, it's like the organs. Different organs are on different circuits. So this is very interesting. So I'm going to say how interesting this is, which I'm doing this really interesting thing. So this is where emotions come in. Emotions are stored in the body as an electromagnetic field. So the better way of talking about this is it's really trauma we're talking about. And trauma can be from different scales. It could be as small as an argument with someone when you were 5 years old, or something more severe. So there's different levels of trauma, but ultimately trapped emotions, which haven't been released from the body, it's kind of like saying the same thing, it's tautology, isn't it? But trapped emotions can quite literally, they are stored in the body as electromagnetic fields. By the way, this book, The Emotion Code, is all about trapped emotions, and he traces back every kind of chronic disease back to a trapped emotion. And Dr. Jerry Tennant's saying exactly the same thing. A number of people are saying the same thing. And the case study, it's like a whole book of case studies of people releasing trapped emotions and healing themselves. It's extraordinary. So these are electromagnetic fields of energy that get trapped in our systems somewhere. It might be in the muscle fascia, it could be in the teeth, and I'll come on to that in a second. So if there is a trapped emotion in any of the battery packs, it can quite literally steal the voltage from that particular system. Dental infections are a big one for lowering voltage in any of your systems. They're like the circuit breakers. Every single one of your teeth, in case you weren't familiar with what teeth are, I'm going to point at them. Every single one of these teeth is actually related to a different circuit in the body. And there's a brilliant documentary called Root Cause, actually, which has been pulled because of the controversy. Ridiculous. So the human body is like a giant wiring system, and this is very, very cool because when you understand it as lots of different systems that work in unison with each other, they all work together, they're all talking with each other all the time, like a Tesla circuit. So you can actually reverse engineer why something might crash. So chronic disease means the failure of an electrical system. So what is the battery pack to the illness is the first question to ask yourself. Is there something in your body, with any kind of organ, any part of the body, you can go, what is causing the voltage to drop? Like what's causing the battery pack to fail? Oh, by the way, the spleen circuit. The spleen goes to the stomach, which powers the entire endocrine system, and the reproductive system in both male and female, the macula and the eye, and the thinking part of the brain. That's just one system out of 6. So if you've got any of those organs that are down, you know you've got low voltage going to them. So when this goes out, failure of an organ takes place, and then you can just adjust. Then you can reverse engineer why it's happened. So how do you know a voltage is low? First, you need to figure out why the battery won't hold its charge. 2, you replace the battery whilst figuring out what has happened. So this is the bit that I get a little bit lost. How do you replace the battery whilst you're figuring it out? Well, you can actually use these devices to put energy into the system, and you can quite literally charge up the battery packs, and then you can reverse engineer what's caused the system to malfunction. So the human body is wired up like a circuit board. Tesla resonating circuits. Capacitor and coil wired in parallel. What that means is it's the ability to communicate with other systems that are in common with Tesla resonating circuits. We're literally wired up like Tesla resonating circuits. So every circuit in the body is wired through the teeth. They act like circuit breakers, and if you have any kind of root canal, you're going to experience a drop in voltage on that particular circuit. And it doesn't just have to be a root canal, it doesn't have to be an infection, it can actually be a trapped emotion. So, which brings me on to the next point. Emotions are trapped as electromagnetic fields of energy, and they can get trapped in your teeth. It's going to sound so weird if this is new to you. And it did to me several years ago, and it's taken me, I've been in this space for a long time, and it took me time to understand this, so don't worry if you're not understanding it. Emotions are trapped as magnetic fields of energy, and they get trapped in the teeth. And the majority of illnesses they actually start with an emotional event. This is why now it's very interesting how my kind of path has changed, because it was all about nutrition at one point. And now I've got to the point where I'm thinking, hang on, it's not just nutrition, it's the physical, it's the mental, and it's the emotional. We need to address the emotional. It's huge. And it's massive. Got a friend called Anahita who reversed her chronic pain, and I learned a lot from her from a few years ago. And now everything's kind of tying in together. It's very interesting. It's all very interesting. Dr. Steinman said that every tooth has within it a pump that pumps fluid from the inside of the tooth to the outside of the tooth. It prevents you from getting cavities. But when the pump fails, infection comes from the mouth into the tooth and causes decay. The emotion lowers the voltage enough in the tooth, meaning the pump fails. It means a cavity, then crown, then root canal, then eventually a malignancy. So an emotion will lower the voltage in the tooth, do everything of that, and then create a malignancy. What they know about the cancers is they actually are created at a specific voltage when the polarity flips. So most chronic diseases occur due to a trapped emotion or several. Sometimes it's other causes like radiation, like EMFs. If you think about how an emotion can cause a system in your body to go down, and we've created that out of our own energy, we can only imagine what EMFs are going to do, which are around us all the time. And there's all these studies now categorically stating how mobile phones, for example, next to your gentleman vegetables if you're a man, and, you know, for women who hold a phone in their bra by their breast, they've seen these tumours in line with the phone. It's real. The evidence is solid. And it makes sense because it's like carrying a transmitter in your pocket, constantly receiving and transmitting electromagnetic frequency.
Studies have been done here in Australia, taking sperm from healthy men. And one test tube gets exposed to cell phone radiation, and one test tube is not exposed to mobile phone radiation. And then the results are evaluated. And this is a measure of vitality. We measure how well the sperm swim. This is a measure of motility. This is a measure of mitochondrial DNA damage. They have 3 times as much damage on their DNA if they have been exposed to mobile phone radiation. The data on that are rock solid. Cell phones can damage sperm quantity and quality.
This is no longer a subject for debate when you look at PubMed and the peer-reviewed literature. These effects are seen in all life forms: plants, animals, insects, microbes. So 5G is not a conversation about whether or not these biological effects exist. They clearly do.
There is scientifically evidence that is so strong that you can be certain that the standards used by the SCC to manage health effects are wrong.
So, what they have found, what he has found, and what these physicists have found, is that there is normally something blocking a flow. So as voltage drops, things get worse. All cancers occur at plus 30 millivolts. So remember me saying at minus 25 millivolts, that's when your body is functioning efficiently and beautifully, everything's in balance across every single system. When the voltage drops and drops and drops and drops and drops, eventually, it's like a battery running out of voltage. Eventually, it flips polarity. And this is what happened with my teeth. So when you go past 0, you have flipped the polarity. This is when the battery is drained to 0, polarity is flipped upside down. And then you get to eventually plus 30 millivolts, and that's when all cancers are created. That is one of the biggest aha moments I ever had. And when this was first explained to me in early 2016 about every cancer created at plus 30 millivolts, I had no idea what he was talking about. And there's a gentleman on the call that does know exactly what I'm talking about. So, the amount of oxygen that dissolves in water is dictated by the voltage of the water. So as water inside our cells has lower voltage, the oxygen comes out of the cells and disappears. When you finally flip the polarity, there is no oxygen capability in the cell. And the stem cells recognize that signal, Stem cells raid the local blood supply and create a mass of blood vessels that we call a cancer, a solid state cancer. So that is actually indistinguishable from a placenta. All solid tumours are placentas. Go figure. So it's actually the body's way of responding to a lack of voltage and a lack of oxygen. In other words, drum roll, please, all cancers, all solid form cancers are your body craving oxygen. It is your body's cry for oxygen. So I just made another point here. It doesn't matter whether you're not, well, being active is obviously very, very important to get enough oxygen into the cell, but there's other things that can actually cause the lack of oxygen getting into the cell. And this is the toxicity overload we're talking about. If it can't get rid of all the toxins, it's going to eventually lower the voltage, flip it, and go the other side. He used a brilliant example with the thumb. Functioning normally, it's minus 25 millivolts. You hit it with a hammer, it goes all red and swollen. So it goes to minus 50 millivolts for the cells to repair and for the immune system to do what it needs to do, for the thumb to recuperate and go back to normal, and goes back to minus 25 millivolts for it to continue as a normal thumb. So when it goes minus 50, it causes the arterioles to dilate, and we need the raw materials to rebuild the cells. When capillaries dilate, we have signs of inflammation. Redness, swelling, I don't know why I did this is my thing, I'm like the inflammation guy. Redness, swelling, heat, pulsing pain, that's inflammation happening in your thumb. So the thumb gets busy making new cells, replaces those damaged ones, the ones damaged by the hammer, and it then returns to minus 25, and you're a happy camper. So, but when would it not repair? When would the thumb not repair? If the power supply going to the thumb is inadequate to provide minus 50 millivolts for it to repair, the thumb will not heal. This is when you're stuck in chronic disease. All the pills in the world will not help until you find a way to get enough electrons to get it up to minus 50 millivolts. It will not heal. This is the best example of chronic disease I've ever heard. So everything is about voltage. Everything is about electron flow. So chronic disease only occurs when you don't have enough voltage to make new cells. As voltage drops, oxygen drops. Several bad things happen. Chronic disease takes place. As oxygen drops, you have less ATP. Remember, that's the energy inside the mitochondria. This is the voltage inside the cell. So it cannot do what it is designed to do. When the body is functioning efficiently, the Krebs cycle works to recharge 38 ATP batteries, remember, inside the cell, for every unit of fatty acid. Remember, we have to take those in externally, these fatty acids, through the Krebs cycle. This is only true when oxygen is available. If it's not available, every unit of, this is where I'm getting a bit technical, but every unit of fatty acid through the battery charger, you only have enough electrons to charge up 2 batteries. It's like having a car that becomes less efficient. It doesn't retain its charge, it can't be driven, and then we have all sorts of other things that take place. So he then talks about bugs. The body contains trillions of bugs. You remember me saying at the beginning that lots of people got ill and I didn't? We actually all have bugs in us all the time. Apparently we all have Lyme disease. Like, all of us have Lyme. It's just a matter of how the strong immune system is, which is going to deal with it or not. So it's suppressed or it's not. So our immune system is only strong when we're giving the fuels to our cells. So the body contains trillions of bugs. Most are suppressed by oxygen. There's that magic thing again. However, as oxygen drops, because voltage drops, bugs wake you up and come alive. Sorry, bugs don't wake you up. They wake up and come alive. They're less suppressed. They get hungry and need feeding. They don't have teeth. Bugs don't have teeth. So what they do is they put out these digestive enzymes to dissolve cells, your healthy ones, so they can get their nutrients. A good example is the tonsils. When you have a sore throat and get the fever, headache, the bugs are actually having their way, putting out their digestive enzymes to get the nutrients out of your cells. So this is all about voltage drop. And I can go on, but I've just realised I've been talking for a very, very long time. So I'm going to end it here, but I think all of this is very, very fascinating. And I want to tie this quickly back to the root canal thing, because it's such a huge point here. And so many illnesses and diseases can actually be traced back to dental work. It doesn't have to be a root canal or a cavity. It can be a trapped emotion. It can be any form of toxicity on that system. and it could be EMFs. So what he told me, relating back to my first story, when you're holding a phone next to your face or anywhere else in the body, reproductive organs, you're a receiver of EMFs. These EMFs caused my teeth to depolarize. The way I got this to fix was he got me on these lasers. He actually fired lasers on me. He had me lying down and had these lasers on me, on my teeth, for like 5-10 minutes, several times, and eventually it repolarized, I guess you could say that. And then my immune system got strong enough, and the cold just went away again. But it's such a crazy thing to know that the phone can depolarize your teeth, which are the circuit breakers for every single system that you have in your body. So if the phone can do that, just the phone on 4G or 3G, imagine what's going to happen with 5G. I'm not going to talk too much, but I've given you quite a lot of information now, and I've probably completely overloaded you. So I'm going to finish it there. Just have a think. The body is an electrical system. We have 6 different systems. If anything's down, we can actually reverse engineer why any system has gone down by isolating each system and finding out why the voltage is down, why the teeth are down. If the teeth are down, if they're not, then something else is going on. And it's just like a reverse engineer situation. So I hope you found that interesting. Thank you for listening. Some people have stayed on this for 45 minutes. I'm impressed. Thank you for being here. Share if you found this useful. It's my first attempt at sharing this with the world. So thank you for being here. Ciao, ciao. Happy Thursday. Almost couldn't think now. I think my EMFs are too close to my head.